I promised you a short break, and I wasn't lying. Welcome back to the Laughing Dragon MXP San Francisco Modern 20K. I'm Tanning Grace. I'm joined by Andrew Ellenbogen. And Andrew, we're going to be going into round 11 here, going by real fast today. Great games, and it looks like we're going to have another great one on deck. We've got Temur Breach in the hand of Dan here, and then Arthur is going to be playing Amulet Titan. What's this one going to be like for the people at home?
Well, this one I'm not as sure of, just because I'm not 100% sure I know the full implications of the teamer part of Teamer Breach, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Uh, Typically, I guess, the way this map goes is, okay, first of all, the Breach deck does have two main deck Blood Moons. Those are going to be decisive. Look, if a Blood Moon lands, Arthur has some moves, but is probably going to lose. Maybe could manage a basic force plus Seiju, but not a great chance. However, in the absence of that, Amulet actually does stand a pretty good chance because the Breach deck actually has no counter spells. This is normal because Underworld Breach does not let you really utilize counter spells very effectively. That is, you can't really flash them back and accomplish anything. It's usually the case that they're counter spells. What this means is the Am deck has kind of a free reign to whatever it wants. Unholy Heats buy a little time, but don't really stop the core deck's functioning. And what this means is, in the absence of a Blood Moon, it's kind of going to be a race. See whether the Breach deck can deal enough damage in combat and then finish off with a Breach into a few Lightning Bolts, or whether the Amulet deck can kill its opponent with a Giant Titan first. And that's the core dynamic.
It looks like we've got pretty good turn ones and turn twos for everybody here. We've got Urza's Saga into a Boreal Grazer, putting it on their land to play. And that's a Ragavan on turn one for Dan, but that pesky 0-3 the other side of the board. Why does it have to have the third toughness, Andrew?
Why indeed? Yeah, one of the unsung heroes of the Amulet deck, I think.
Yeah, I remember it was just it was all Ragavan format when it first came out, and I remember the very first game I played that I had Ragavan on the play. I was like, oh, I'm finally gonna get to do this. My opponent put in a Boreal Grazer to play, and I was like, okay, this is stupid. I don't like this, but this is what Lightning Bolt was printed for. Goes ahead, takes care of that. A Boreal Grazer. Oh, interesting. That's a nice one. Ragavan comes across, it's gonna make a treasure token. An Amulet gets revealed off the top. I was gonna say, do you ever want an Amulet? Dan, like, you see the girl in his face is like, do I want to do this? All right, so we got a Bobble. We have to check the top card of the deck here with the DRT trigger. Bobble's gonna, okay, just move over. Thought we were gonna get sacrificed right away. I was gonna say, do you ever actually want an Amulet as Temur Breach? I don't think so.
I don't think the Amulet does that much for you, but it does grant you a Surveil. So to me, this question is more about, would I rather have a treasure token or a Surveil? For example, if your hand is pretty land heavy and you really just want to make sure you're finding what you need, especially if you had bottomed on the first Surveil, I think it might have been worth casting, but the artifact itself does almost nothing for you. So with most hands, I imagine you just end up not casting it, and that is indeed what Dan does here.
Speed of Amulets, one is searched up here by Urza's Saga. We've got a colorless floating here as well, so 3 mana for now available to Arthur. But we know with Amulet Titan, when there's an Amulet in play and you've got some mana, it could easily double on this turn.
I mean,
Forest for the turn. Dryad is going to be the play. Land for the turn is going to be Valakut. It's going to come into play untapped because of the Amulet. I'm going to pass back over.
I mean, I think Arthur has the potential to literally kill Dan next turn.
Yeah, I think so as well. Taking a look at the cards in the graveyard for Unholy Heat, I think we're at Delirium now. I think it's land, artifact, instant, creature. If Dan were to have something like that to get through and kill off the Dryad this turn. As well as just attacking, and if a block happens, Bolt could get it done too. But at least the Dragon Range Chandler is a 3/3 flyer here.
That's fair, but if you're Dan and you have Unholy Heat here, I'm not sure you want to spend it on the Dryad.
You're going to be saving it for Titan?
Yes, because the crucial thing is, even if you kill this Dryad, Arthur just still has the ability to make a Titan off a single bounce land, right? It's not like the extra land drop is somehow needed here to produce 6 mana, and given that, it's not clear how impactful the Dryad is. Now, the fact that Arthur is randomly drawn one of the few Valkyries, didn't need 2 to 4, it didn't need to do anything, does maybe move the needle towards heating it. I think the play is not obvious, though, because okay, if you heat this Dryad and Arthur has a Titan, what happens is you die right now. It's over. So it's very dangerous.
Yeah, it looks like the Ragavan did attack into it here, and hey, there's one of the one-ofs that could be Impact Player. That's Sunhome, right? The-
Yes, so now Arthur has no ability to grant his Titans double strike. This does mean that a Titan attacking is only going to be for 8 off that Slayer Stronghold. However, I think with 2 amulets, I mean, I haven't done the full math, but I think Arthur might be able to produce multiple Titans if he has the first Titan.
Yeah, let's see here. It looks like, okay, well, he didn't go get another amulet. He went and got an Expedition map.
He doesn't have the bounce land.
Yeah,
Wow.
there we go. Now he's going to go find the bounce land. He's going to be able to play that multiple times this turn if he wants to. Hasn't made a land drop yet.
Maybe. Okay, if my opponent finds this bounce land and I'm Dan and I have Unholy Heat, I'm going to respond to the bounce land with Unholy Heat.
So it looks like play that, play it again. Float a bunch of mana. That's 4 mana floating. Here's 6. Here comes Primeval Titan. All right, trigger from the Primeval Titan. Again, Amulet still in play. 2 land drops already made for Arthur this turn.
Yeah. The real weird part is now Arthur knows there is no Unholy Heat, because if there were, Dan would have killed the Dryad.
Right.
So he can just get the Slayer Stronghold plus the, Forest Garrison with impunity. Normally, you might think, okay, I might define some lands that give me actual value because they're free from Holy Heat. But because you sort of already Holy Heat checked to your opponent and they failed, you can feel free to swing the defenses.
Yep, looks like he went ahead and got that combo you're talking about. Here comes the Slayer Stronghold. So this Titan is attacking for 8. Another 2 triggers here. How many lands do we have in play right now? It says 5.
Yes.
So we have to get some triggers off this Valakut, or
oh, there might be a lot of triggers because we can get 2 more Valakuts.
This should be lethal.
Yes, I believe that is 18 damage and triggers. Your opponent goes to 1 and takes 8. And this is sort of what I mean, right? It's like, all right, so losing double strike there, it mattered a little, but in the end, Arthur was still able to achieve lethal pretty easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge turn from Arthur there, and this is what we talk about every time we play this deck. The possibility of just those absurd explosive turns out of Amulet are so impressive. Like, it looks like they don't have a whole lot going on, then all of a sudden they just do 18 game actions their turn and kill you. Taking a look at these decks, I don't know if you've had a time to look at them. Anything interesting in the sideboards that might be coming in?
A few things. So, okay. Look, this Temur Breach deck, I think, regardless of its advantage in other matchups, is definitely worse than a traditional Murktide deck against Anda. Lacking counterspells is a big game. That said, its sideboard does have a fair amount of hate. We're going to be boarding these 4 pick your poisons, hit amulets, hit Urza Sagas, disrupt them generally. We're going to be boarding these 2 dress downs, which are absolutely excellent. Can kind of counter a Titan with a dress down and an Unholy Heat, if you're going to put counter in, quotes. We're also going to be boarding in this Magnus Moon, which is a huge beat in this matchup, much harder move than Blood Moon, immune to Boseiju, requires very narrow and specific answers. And all of those cards, I think, are going to be meaningful improvements over cards in Dan's main deck.
Alright, looks like we're going to have a Dragon Rage Chandler on turn 1. They have one good one drop, then you're going to get a second one here as well. Amulet played for Arthur Spring. Looks like in the upkeep or bolting here. Make sure we get that Surveil trigger before we get our draw step. Possibly looking for a second land here usually. And I see a little bit of a grimace from Dan here.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Yep, and look, there it is, the no land. That was pretty tell. Like, I think we both picked up on that. So, I think the light is all green for Arthur Springs here. Bajuka Bog from Arthur here as well. That's going to not only exile the graveyard from Dan, that's also going to come into play untapped. So he's going to get a mana out of it if he wants here. Arbor Elf, I'm sorry. He's going to go ahead. Boreal Grazer is going to put in a Simic Growth here, pick up the Bajuka Bog as well. So we might get to use it yet again this game if Arthur wants. Back over to Dan. Does he find a second mana source here?
I mean, this is one of the things that's incredibly strong about Bajuka Bog out of this Anda deck is it really does not mean 1 Tormod's Crypt. It means, like, 4 Tormod's Crypts.
Looks like Unholy Heat is going to take care of this Grazer after the trigger. I think Dan is still resolving the trigger here. So looks like it's a hard choice, which to me signals it's not a land if it's a hard choice. Because I think it's just you would just snap. Okay, never mind. You drew a land for the turn. Also, I see why Dan kept his hand. There's a Blood Moon in there.
Yes. Oh, I was thinking the same thing. If you have DRC, Lightning Bolt, Blood Moon, one land, and any combination of other cards, are you keeping?
I think so.
I think I'm pretty close to just saying yes.
Yeah. All right, there goes the ball yet again. Gonna come into play untapped because of the amulet. Or not because it's gonna untap because of the amulet. I guess it doesn't technically come into play untapped, but getting ahead of myself here. And no play from Arthur here with this 4 mana.
There's often this tendency, as Amulet actually, where post-board in many matchups, you'll be willing to keep kind of slower, less explosive hands because you expect your opponents to board in so much interaction dedicated for you. So the game becomes less about mulliganing to like some sort of, blitz, blazingly fast start, and more about just having a lot of resources to be able to grind through patent interaction.
Looks like we're going to float blue and green in response to the Blood Moon here, kind of signaling maybe they go to Beseiju on Arthur's side of the board. I have to think that's possible here. We're still resolving the DRC trigger here. It looks like Preordain's going to go to the graveyard from the Surveil. Yeah, so before the phases change, it looks like Arthur... Alright, maybe this is actually, as I say, yes. Otawara is going to bounce the Blood Moon here. So Arthur's going to get to have his actual mana here this turn.
With a bounce land, he has 6 this turn, so the Blood Moon might cease to matter in short order.
Yeah, well, there's Vesuva. It's going to copy, I believe it copies Civic Growth Chamber. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, wow. Does it just pass the turn back?
Yep, Arthur just passed the turn back. Yep. Seems like he has no action in his hand.
Wow. I mean,
You're Dan, you got to be super happy about that.
Oh, the game, I think, just flipped on its head. I mean, look, Arthur kept a hand to the effect of Amulet, Abriel Grazer, Bajuka Bog, various lands, including a bounce land. That's a fine hand. A lot can go right with it. It's got a lot of resources. It's not too vulnerable to pick your poison or anything like that. I don't mind this keep. But if you don't find the payoff, you are going nowhere quickly. Oh, I'm on a second Blood Moon. Oh, no, sorry, I guess the same one bounce. It's Savage.
Yeah. Trigger the DRC. Blood Moon, like you said, really popular. No response from Arthur either. No mana floating here, so no Beseiju, no answer. Dan in a pretty good spot here. You can see at home why he kept that one lander.
It does look like Arthur maybe copied the basic forest just so he's able to cast potential Titan through this Blood Moon.
That's actually probably what happened. That's a really good catch, Andrew. Looks like Stern Scold is going to take care of the Arboreal Grazer. Going to get a trigger for Dragon Chandler. I think that might give the 4th. Let's see here. I got instant, land, sorcery. I think that's only 3, but I might be wrong. All right, Dismember. Arthur is going to take care of the Dragon Rage Chandler. Put him down to 10 here after paying the 4 life. Back over to Dan. Let's see if he's got another threat here. Even though he's far ahead, he's going to want to try to get this game over with as quickly as possible. Treasure Shredder's a pretty decent one, but it looks like he's going to pass back over to Arthur. No second spell to play immediately after Treasure Shredder. Back over to Arthur. Looks like he has something he can actually play. Dryad. They're coming to play for Arthur here. Back over to Dan.
Yeah, so Arthur's lands now tap for any color of mana, but even if he draws a Titan, his lands still don't do anything cool. So his deck is still not really going to be firing until he removes this Blood Moon somehow.
Alright, speaking of your deck firing, here we go. Get ready. Hold on to your butts. Here comes a Underworld Breach. Looks like Preordain's going to be the first choice out of the graveyard. This is the second spell cast this turn. Let's see if the Legendary trigger gets put on the stack. Yep, there we go. Right, Connive. Was that a Spell Pierce, I think, is the blue card? It's Scalding Torrent, Return, and that Pick Your Poison. Yeah, so Pick Your Poison is discarded here. Legendary is going to get a +1/+1 counter. Now we're going to resolve Preordain.
Yeah, the Breach deck's still lacking green mana, so getting rid of the Pick Your Poison makes a lot of sense.
Both to the bottom, draws a card for turn. That's an Unholy Heat, Andrew. Do we have Delirium? I don't think we do. Maybe we will at the end of turn, though, when the enchantment goes to the graveyard.
Well, perhaps, but that would mean not casting another spell. I mean, when you play this breach, you'd really like to get multiple cards out of it.
Yeah. Looks like we're going to attack over for 2. Arthur's going to go down to 8 here from the Ledger Shredder. Yeah, it looks like Spell Pierce, Scalding Tarn, Unholy Heat for Dan here. I was hoping to maybe get a little more value off that Preordain. It didn't really keep the wheels turning this turn. Alright, so...
Wow.
I don't know if he even has Delirium now, so say. I know there's enchantment. I think it's enchantment instant sorcery.
But
Maybe only
sorcery.
3. Yeah. Alright, so Dryad's gonna go ahead and attack. Here comes another land and a go from Arthur here. Man, he must be really flooding out here. Alright, well, there's Delirium. Okay, so Mishra's Bauble off the top. Second spell for the turn. Gonna be Unholy Heat. Alright, so there is 4.
Oh, I didn't see the instant.
Yeah, so there we go. Unholy Heat is active.
I mean, just to be clear, last turn Dan could have cast his Preordain from the graveyard before the breach was sacked and chose not to, just so that he would have Delirium for the Unholy Heat. He gave up a lot for that Delirium, but I do think it's reasonable.
Kanai did go off there, put another +1/+1 counter on the Legislator here. Preordain's going to resolve, put a new card into Dan's hand. And take a look at the top card of Arthur's deck here. Another card's going to be coming during Arthur's upkeep. Attack for 3. And Legislator here going to put Arthur down to 7. So the land drop for the turn is coming for Dan. Yeah. Looks like it's just a pass. Moving over to Arthur. Card draw here for Dan.
Players in the 12:30.
A little shrug here from Arthur. Looks like he drew something. Was this a ring? Yeah, it looks like the 1 ring, and that is actually going to resolve, it looks like. Immediately going to draw a card here. The 1 ring protection trigger on the stack. Arthur's going to draw an extra card here. There's a little something going here, Andrew.
Yes, I mean, okay, so Dan has the ability to answer the ring using Pick Your Poison, but he lacks green mana, he lacks the Pick Your Poison, and there's an amulet kind of protecting the ring. So I actually think that this is really problematic for Dan.
Yeah, I think Dan just put his companion into his hand this turn and said go, and Arthur's tapping pretty quickly here. He's got to feel like he's got a new lease on life. All right, draw 2 cards here after going to 4 from the ring.
I mean,
3 new
he
cards
does
for him
need
this
something
turn.
this turn, but
Yeah, I was
he
gonna
has
say,
a lot
he
of
still has
resource
the-
to work.
All right, another land into play that doesn't do anything. All right, 1 green mana, a Boreal Grazer. All right, Grazer's going to resolve. He's going to put a Radiant Fountain into play. It doesn't do anything. 4 mana is going to make another ring. The Connive trigger is going to go on the stack, but the ring with 2 burden counters on it is going to go away here. A new ring protection trigger on the stack. Arthur's wasting no time. He's going to draw the new card right now. Looks like he found something he can play. Another Amulet. Okay, well, we're going to go back over to Dan here. Dan can't target Arthur or attack him this turn. He has protection from everything.
Could have Spell Pierce the amulet, chose not to, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I really don't think it matters actually at this point. Looks like it's going to be a land and a pass from Dan here. Alright, I think brought Arthur down to 3 here, I think, this turn, and he's going to go ahead and draw 2 new cards. What is that that he just drew? That looks... Is that Explore?
I believe
Alright, that
that's
is Explore. Yeah. I think it was another Dryad that just came off the top. So there's green mana. So now we can possibly cast another spell here. All right, so there's Dryad. So cast the second spell cast this turn. It's going to trigger Connive. Another Preordain hitting the bin here.
Notably, Arthur can chump block this Legislator if all goes well, so he might get another turn.
All right, well, Dress Down is going to get played in response here. The creatures have no abilities now. All right, so land drop for Explorer and a Valakut. Creatures have no abilities, though. It's going to Unholy Heat, and that's going to be good enough for this game. So we're going to be getting Game 3 between Temur Breach and Amulet Titan here. And look, for a game in where you miss a land drop that early, you got to be happy about getting a win out of this one, even if it took a little longer than you thought.
Yeah, I mean, he kept a hand that was good on the condition that you hit. I think that's what you should do when you keep one-litters. If the reward has to be there, it's okay to take risks as long as when you hit, your hand is really good. And he did miss once, but his hand was so good, and Arthur's draw was a little awkward, and he was able to capitalize. Makes sense. Hmm. I also want to call attention to a small thing that game, but it looks like the team of each player has Boardman Stern Scolding. I wasn't sure whether that was going to be worth it for him or not. It's a little narrow. It only counters Dryad and Grazer, but it does handle either of those cards for 1 minute. So
That's actually a really good point, Andrew. And I think I see a Blood Moon yet again in the opening hand for Dan here. And I think I might see a Stern Scolding too in the back there. I'm not 100% on that one, but looks like it's going to be a Dragon Rage Chandler here on turn 1 for our Temur Breach player. Back over to Amulet Titan. Looks like we've got a turn 2. It's a little fuzzy for me. I can't tell what's in play right now, but it looks like a Simic Group Chamber. I'm assuming that's an Amulet.
That's
a map. It's a map. Okay. Sorry, my feed got really bad here for a moment.
No problem.
Back over to Dan here. He's going to go ahead and fetch up an island. I'll play around that Blood Moon that's possibly coming down on turn 3. Looks like a Ledger Shredder here on turn 2. He's even got the bobble behind this. He's going to have 2 triggers here. Dragon Rage Chandler and the Ledger Shredder are both going to trigger. Let's see what order he wants to resolve these in.
This is kind of the dream start for Dan, of just ERC Ledger Shredder with the bobble, with a Blood Moon on 3. I mean, that's what he wants to see. Obviously, it doesn't mean the game is over. Arthur's deck has plenty of counterplay to Blood Moon, but you cannot be sad if you're sitting in Dan's seat right now.
It looks like the Surveil put a Misty Rainforest in the yard. Now a card has been drawn off the Ledger Shredder. Let's see what gets discarded here. Is the Ledger Shredder going to be a 2-4 or is he going to stay at a 1-3? Let's find out. I think
Dan's really thinking this over. Maybe a little flooded, but still wants the size for the quick clock. Not sure which way he wants to go.
It's that or like, yeah, he seems to be choosing between Misty Rainforest and Preordain. It looks like he is going to pitch the Preordain. I wonder if he has another land besides this Misty Rainforest. Plus, that one can go find another island, so you can have a double blue source with Blood Moon in play. And the Dragon Rage Chandler are going to go ahead and come across still just for 1. Arthur only at 19 here, but with a little bit of a slow start.
Something you should keep in mind, though, is Dan's Temur Breach doesn't actually have almost any blue cards. I'm not saying that the second island isn't valuable to let him cast multiples of turn or what have you, but it's not as crucial for a deck like Murktide that really needs that second island to be able to function.
Looks like for the turn, Arthur just has a Boreal Grazer into Gruul Turf picking up Valakut, but don't forget, a Boreal Grazer does have reach, so it could block some of these creatures here as well, and don't think this Misty Rainforest could get into the graveyard any faster for Dan here. He smells blood, and I smell the Blood Moon coming, Andrew.
Nice. Good work, yeah. And this Blood Moon is going to double Stone Rain Arthur, color screw him on green, and generally ruin his day, unless he has some sort of answer.
Yeah, this is a really, really heavy Blood Moon here, Arthur got, but he does have Expedition Map in play, so maybe he could go search up a forest and have some play possibly over the next turn or two, but he's also got a clock in play against him here from Dan as well. This is Bob added here.
True, and one issue for Arthur is, okay, you can find forest, but it's not like you can find forest and Boseiju, right? So Arthur sort of has to have the other piece just in his hand right now. Now, he might, we don't have any reason to believe he doesn't, but he kind of needs to have it, like, right now. Because the clock is really going here.
Mm-hmm. How is your feed right now?
Mine is okay. I'm not totally sure what's going on with yours.
Yeah, mine's a little choppy, so I might miss a thing or two here. But it looks like looks like we're back in business and attack for. Let's say it's the Dragon Chandler have. Is it? Let's say did it attack for 3 or for 1 there? Anyway, a couple of damage comes over to Arthur. Arthur down to 13. Gonna draw here under the gun. A lot of things going wrong from here. This Blood Moon, chief of the most. Looks like he's gonna go ahead and just play a Semi-Grove Chamber, pass. He's gonna have a lot of mana in play if he ever gets this Blood Moon taken care of, though.
That is definitely true. He's sort of dodging the, I don't know, downside of Bounce Lands, if you will.
Quote unquote downside, yeah.
Yeah.
Second Blood Moon, Andrew. So if you find a Boseiju and a green source, that's not going to be good enough.
Yeah, I am not sure how Arthur's going to get out of this one. Now he's drawing really slim. Most Amulet decks don't have any Force of Vigors, and indeed Arthur does not, so there's no one card that can answer both Blood Moons. He's going to need, I don't even know, a basic Forest followed by 2 Boseijus, something like that. It's really tough.
Yeah, he's down to 10 here, too. Don't forget that as well. I was just checking for Force of Vigor as well myself in his deck list, but it looks like he did go and find the Forest. See what he can cook up here. Let's see, is this yeah, this is a Dryad. At least tap for colored mana now. There's the land. Gonna pass back to Dan.
But Steve, where does tapping colored mana even take him? I mean, without answers to the Blood Moons.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
For example, let's say that, okay, after Dan attacks Arthur down to 5, Arthur untaps and plays Titan, his theoretical payoff. Well, none of his lands will do anything, and the Titan won't have haste or a way to get haste, so he'll still just die. You know, it's
yeah, sorry about that. Go ahead.
I was just saying it's not easy to get out of this situation.
No, absolutely. So, unholy, he is targeting the Dryad here with a trigger of Death Right. I'm sorry, the trigger of Dragon Rage Chandler on the stack. We're gonna pay 4 life, or actually, I don't think he has to pay 4 life. He only has to pay 2 life here because he tapped 2 lands to use Dismember on the Dragon Rage Chandler in response. So, Spell Pierce here is going to absolutely say no. We have another trigger here on the stack, so tons of triggers. So, all right, looks like. All right, that one's gonna pump there. Surveil. We have another Surveil. And Holy Heat's gonna resolve, and I think that's gonna be pretty much it for Arthur here. I think he's gonna take what, 7 here this turn. Arthur's gonna be a 1.
Yeah, I mean, even if the Arthur draws something like the Ring, which could theoretically buy a turn, if he's at 1, he can't even use the Ring.
Yeah.
So he died
You
of the
can't be
trigger.
burdened. Yeah.
So I don't really see what Arthur's odds are. I think it's all over but the crying, as they say.
Yeah. Absolutely great draws here in games 2 and 3. For Dan's gonna go ahead and put the companion in his hand. Might as well still play the game out just in case something really weird happens. You don't know that he doesn't have Force of Vigor. So, draw for Arthur. Let's see what he drew this turn. Does look like it's a ring. Yeah, all right, I have protection. I can't do anything.
It's just treading water. Again, Arthur, he gets to look at another card, but I don't see how that helps.
So he gets to look at a ton of cards here at the Crest of Iteration. I wonder how many Lightning Bolts are still left in Dan's deck. I think the number would be low. But
it could be 0. It could be 1 or 2 to try to use with Underworld Breach.
Might not even matter. I think he picked up a dress down. Nice keeping the board state correct. You have to attack with the Dragon Rage Chandler there. I can appreciate that. Draw 1 here for the ring. And that's going to be it. Dan's going to move on for a Breach deck. We didn't really see a lot of breaching going on this round, but you know what? Blood Moon does pretty well against Amulet Titan.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, I understand the deck is called Temur Breach, and that is typically what it's appeared as on registration sheets, but I would describe the deck as more of an alternate take on Murktide than anything else. Generally speaking, this deck is known as a Murktide variant that is better in some of the fair matchups, better against Yawgmoth, worse against some of the combo decks such as Amulet Titan. Not that those games really demonstrated it.
Absolutely. It sounds like we're going to be taking just a little bit of a short break here. As you've seen earlier, they haven't been too long, and we'll be right back with, I think, round 12 of our tournament, so don't go anywhere.